My name is Matthew Leisher, and I'm the composer for Bullets. I chose the instruments that I went with in the trailer because I used a lot of bassier instruments. There was actually a synth bass in there, which I was pretty much going for a classical feel to it and not trying to add a lot of synthesized instruments to it, because I feel like that wasn't really fitting for what was trying to be done. So I went with the piano and the violin, or pretty much the bare bones and meat of the song in the trailer. I went with the staccato melody because I felt like that added a sense of tension, and a lot of the scenes in the trailer looked to be fairly tense scenes, but without the dialogue there, you couldn't really tell. So I was trying to almost substitute the dialogue for the music, or substitute the music for the dialogue. I've got involved with Bullets because I read the script and I felt that the characters were interesting, the story was interesting, and that it was a story that hasn't really been told in that certain way. And I got involved composing for it because Ty, my brother, created, wrote, and directed this whole series. So I really wanted to merge our passions into one concentrated force. My favorite composers, just in general in music, are going to be the old masters: Beethoven, Mozart. Paganini is probably my favorite classical composer. And as for movie composers, pretty much all the big names again: Danny Elfman, John Williams, Hans Zimmer. Really like Hans Zimmer. When Hans Zimmer took that note and actually modulated and slowed it down even more to where an actual instrument probably couldn't produce that note in reality, I think it added a whole nother dimension to the music in general in the movie. Just by adding that little nuance, added a whole nother world, basically. My creative process when writing a score for a film is fairly organic. I try and capture the mood that is trying to be set with the film. And I start out with a bed track and have the rhythm go down first, because I feel like that's more of a solid foundation. Then I come in with the melody and tweak that around and see how it feels, experiment with different phrasing. The only formal training that I have in music was when I was about 6 or 7 years old. I took 2 piano lessons. And so I guess music was always just a part of my life that I didn't really realize how big of a part it was until a little bit later on. So teaching myself, if anybody else is a self-taught musician, you know it's kind of difficult. But once you know the basic building blocks of how music works, you can go on to more advanced techniques and ideas, and it all flows much more smoothly. For Bullets in particular, I like to use a lot of the low frequency instruments, like the bass end of the piano and more bassy horns, just because I feel like that adds a lot of tension, and I feel like that added a lot to the trailer and the show in general. Because of my writing process being, organic and naturally flowing, there isn't really a hardest part that I could isolate, but probably the most difficult thing would probably be finding a melody that would suit what's being portrayed in the scene. My favorite film, if I had to choose one from a music standpoint, would probably be the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, because the way that Hans Zimmer wrote the music for it made it really immersive, made it feel like you were in that world, with the way that he arranged it and the choice of instruments that he used really made it feel like you were part of that world. And it was a really fun soundtrack, basically. The instruments that I always go back to are probably violin and piano, just because they're so versatile and really diverse sounding. Like with the piano, it has the biggest range of any instrument. So I feel like you can do a lot with a piano just by itself. I just think that composing for films, music is a really big part of films, because movies got to have music or else it just feels kind of empty. So I felt that I could really contribute and add another dimension in addition to the story and the character development and everything else.